In this video, I want to briefly cover how to use adjustment layers with masks. Just like pixel layers, you can use masks on adjustment layers. As a matter of fact, remember that adjustment layers always come with masks, and there's a reason for that because we almost always use masks with them. I'm going to show you a couple of different strategies and a couple of different tricks. Let's go ahead and start though with this bird just by doing a quick selection just as we've done before. And I'm, again, not going to worry about this being particularly precise because I'm going to show you some ways to modify it. I'm just going to go ahead and select the bird. Now, instead of doing a mask, I could just, as you remember, I could just add a mask right here onto this pixel layer. And it looks pretty bad because it's just masking out the background. Instead, though, I'm going to do something different. With this selected, I'll go ahead and add a little of his beak. It's kind of bugging me, but you'll see that it doesn't really matter how precise we are in this particular exercise. Instead of adding a mask to this layer, I'm going to go to the adjustment layers, and I'm going to choose the black and white layer. Now watch what happens. So we've popped over to the black and white properties panel, but let's go back to layers so you can see what's going on. When I selected that adjustment layer, it automatically used the selection I had to create a mask, to actually add that to the mask on the selection layer. Now, this is actually the reverse of what I wanted, which, as you recall, is not a big issue. If I click here and I do Command I for Command Inverse, I can change the layer so it goes back the other way. And you can see now I have kind of an interesting effect with the bird being in color and the background being in black and white. Now, this is just the starting point. There's all sorts of things that you can do with this layer, including changing the opacity. And this is changing the opacity of the black and white layer, so some of the background shows through, giving a little saturated point. And remember, these are all things you can keep redoing. I can also change the opacity. Here, if I go to properties, I can actually change the density of the mask so that I get just a little bit of color. I can feather this, and I'll go ahead and make the density higher so you can see this, so the edges get a little softer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and not do any of that. I'm just going to leave that for now because I want to show you how to use painting on a mask to adjust a mask. And then we're going to talk about how we could just use painting on a mask all by itself. So again, there's all sorts of different ways that you can use this. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the brush tool. The brush tool is right here. It also can be accessed just by doing the shortcut B. Just pulls it up. And when we're on a mask, it automatically will be painting on the mask. It should, this little area right here, very important, this should be black and white. If it isn't, if you got a color there because you were doing something with color palettes, if you just hit D, it's going to default to black and white. And it will always put the white in the foreground when you do that. The foreground color is what we're going to be painting with. So just as an example, if I left it that way and I went to the pixel layer and I painted on the pixel layer, oops, oh, it defaulted back to black. It's painting on black on the pixel layer underneath the black and white. And it looks like I have, good thing to notice, let's go back. It looks like I have my brush. Always remember to set your brush properly. Looks like I have my brush on a lower opacity. I'm going to bring it up to 100%, and I'll do that again so you can see that it's actually going to paint in black. I'm doing Command Z to go back on that. If I change the foreground to white, it's going to paint in white. And that's painting right on the pixel layer, destructively. You don't want to do that. Now, I want to show you what happens when we instead go and pick the mask on the adjustment layer. In this case, and I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better, what I want to do to start is I want to actually reveal the black and white. So white reveals, black conceals. So anywhere I paint on this mask with white, it's going to reveal the adjustment, the black and white adjustment. So let me just paint on these leaves, because I want everything but the bird to be black and white. And you can see this is actually, and I'll show you on the mask, it's actually adding to the mask. Or sorry, taking away from the mask, so that this black and white layer shows through anywhere that I paint. So you can imagine this is a very useful technique. Remember, just as anywhere else, I can change the size of my brush with my bracket keys or manually. I can change the feathering of it. What's nice about painting, especially depending on the image, is you can be kind of mushy with it. This is a little bit more of a loose, creative way of using your layer masks. Just going to kind of tweak that. Remember that we're working on a mask, so it's totally non-destructive. If I make a mistake, like if I go, whoops, and I go over here, it's totally fixable. It's really easy. If I just switch this back, and I'll show you a shortcut for that in a minute, I can just paint that mask back in the area where I made the mistake. No big deal, because remember, it's just on the mask. I'm going to switch it back again, and this time I'm going to use it using the X key. I generally, when I'm doing this kind of work, I actually have my hand sort of hovered over the X key so I can switch back and forth between the two colors. Here we go. Actually, it's kind of odd. I think this is the shadow, but it looks like it should be included. So yeah, I think it is actually the leaf. I'm going to include it there. Command 0, and you can see we have that effect. Now we can also go through and just tweak some of the edges here. X back. I'm going to add a little bit of his breast back in. Oops, that was too much. So Command C and just go back for a second. You can do Command C, it's not a big deal. It's just sometimes easier just to paint back over it. I'm going to take out this edge so the sky doesn't show. Overall, I did a pretty good job with selection, but it definitely looks like I've got some areas to clean up. I could kind of mush that because it's a dark area, it won't show. Oh, a little bit more here. Okay. And we've got it. Okay, beautiful. Now from there I can make all sorts of adjustments. As I mentioned before, I can change the opacity, and this is on an adjustment layer. So I can simply turn it on and off. Now, let me show you a really cool trick. Let's say I like this, but I want for the other layer to be, the bird to be more saturated, a little bit brighter, a little bit more gold. Pretty easy to do. I'm going to add an adjustment layer, and I'm going to add hue and saturation. And let's just go back so you can see this is another layer with a mask on it. Nothing is happening because I haven't made any adjustments in that layer, unlike the black and white, which comes up automatically black and white. In this, with the hue saturation, it's there, but it's not making any changes until I actually tweak it. I'm going to play a little bit with the hue, just a little bit, not too much. What I mainly want to do is up the saturation. We make it just a tiny bit darker. Now, one thing I want you to notice, when I do the saturation and the hue, those only apply to the color areas. But when I do the lightness, it actually applies to the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that in because I want you to see this. Okay, there. So I actually don't want to darken the whole thing. I just want to darken the bird. So let's go back to the layers. So this is actually affecting this. It can't affect the color because I've converted that to black and some of it to black and white, but it can affect the darkness. So let me show you this very cool trick in order to make this complete. I'm going to hold the Option key down, and I'm going to grab this mask, I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to copy it to the top. I need to reverse it, and now you can see that that darkness and the saturation only apply to the bird. Okay, so that's a nice introduction to this. Now let's actually, just before I go, I'm going to stop this video and move on to the next. I'm just going to click this so you can see that in this one, the saturation is applied only to the bird. The background's in color, but you can see that the bird is more saturated. So there's lots of amazing, complicated ways that you can use this. And it's just up to you how you get started.